Uh, Good afternoon. This is a Devar Torah for Purim involving Megillus Esther. And I would like to ask a number of questions. The four main characters in Megillus Esther are Achashverosh, Mordecai, Esther, and Haman. Now, the basic story is known. What I would like to address and go into, what is the deeper significance of each of them on a level of remez, illusion, number one. Secondly, another question I would like to ask, how do they interconnect to each other on this deeper level? Three, there is a connection between Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, and the story of Purim. And finally, I would like to ask, what does any or all of this have to do with the fact that on Purim, there's a concept of having Suda, and in that Suda, drinking enough that one cannot tell the difference between Mordechai Asadik and Haman Rasha. What is the deeper meaning and connection with that and with the other points I've raised? Now, I would first like to address Achashverosh. Now, Achashverosh, in fact, I would like to address it with the first pasuk. V'hi beim v'mei Achashverosh, hu Achashverosh hamelech mahodu ad kus she'esrim v'mei medina. And that he, in the days of Achashverosh, who's Achashverosh, he was melech from Mahodu, which is India in today's terms, ad Kush Sheba, 127 provinces. Now, on the level of remez, I would like to quote the Gra and explain who Achashverosh is on a deeper level. However, to do that, we need to go to the, as the Gra does, the second pasuk of the entire Chumash, which says, Haaretz haita tohu v'bohu v'choshek al pnei tehom hemruach Elohim mefareset al pnei mayim. And the earth was empty and without apparent purpose, with design, with darkness upon the surface of the deep, and the divine presence hovered upon the surface of the waters. Then the next pasuk is talking about Vihi, or let there be light. And then separating, goes on to separate the light and darkness, which I'll also get to later in this Devar Torah. However, if you take the letters of the word Tehom, which means deep, Taf, Hey, Vav, Mem, and you rearrange them, you'll get the word Hamalak Mavis, which means the angel of death. Now, as the Gra explains, Vilna, Rebellion Vilna, that personifies the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, the sides of impurity. Now, how does it do that? What is the Malach Mavis? the Gra goes in some detail. I'm going to summarize, but basically, the Malach Mavis is has three aspects. One is the angel of death, the other is the Yetzer Hara, and the third one is Satan, the accuser. Now, how does the process work? As the Yetzer Hara would like it, as the Yetzer Hara, the person is going to be tempted. They're going to try to tempt the man or woman into sinning. Eventually, he'll hopefully get enough sins that this person is almost at the point of no return. He'll then go up to Shemaim and ask God, can I take this person back? He or she is evil, not going to get anywhere with them. Then, as the Malach of Mavis, now that the Yetzer has done its work, Malach of Mavis will bring him back to Shemaim, and Shema's back to Shemaim. And then Satan will act as the accuser, listing all the things and saying that, of course, they need punishment sometime in Gehenna. And that's the way he works. Now, who is now, according to the Gra, who is the Malach Mavat? Malach Mavis is the Yetzer Hara. That is who Achashverosh is. And he's trying to entrap the Jewish people. Now, who is Esther? I'll get back to her in a minute, but I'd like to elaborate a little on Achashverosh. What did Achashverosh do that was so bad? The beginning events of the story, Megillas Esther, begins with this party. In fact, this party takes place some 9 years before the climactic events of the latter part of the story of Megillas Esther. And what was so bad about this party? What was so bad about this party was that while Achashverosh had a 6-month celebration, he finally called another celebration after 6 months of partying. Why was he so happy? Because there had been a prophecy that the people of Israel would be returned to Israel after 70 years. He had calculated that the 70 years had passed. Actually, his calculation was wrong, and he should have died on the spot after he did what I'm about to say, but Hashem was saving him for the miracles in Purim. He was celebrating the fact that, as far as he was concerned, the temple wasn't going to be rebuilt. In other words, God was powerless. To show his arrogant disrespect, he, in addition, went back, wore the Kohen Gadol's clothes, and he used the vessels from the temple, holy vessels from the temple that had been captured by the Babylonians when Persia Mede overthrew Babylonia. They fell into the hands of the kingdom. Now, that being the case, what happens next? So this party should not have been attended for those reasons. Mordecai told him not to attend. He was in one of the top leaders in the Anshe Knesset Gadol, the supreme rabbinical body, and later formed into the Sanhedrin. And he knew all that. They didn't listen to him. So, in a very real sense, they were defying the Torah, the knowledge of the Torah represented, oral Torah, represented by the Rebbeim of each generation. And that was another problem. Also, if you look at the environment, the food there was perfectly kosher, even glatt kosher, couldn't get more kosher food, catered completely kosher. So what was the problem with going there? The people were afraid not to go because they defend the leaders. They didn't trust in the Torah, they didn't trust in Mordecai's interpretation, didn't trust in God overall, that he was going to protect us. They went. Now, in addition to everything I discussed, on a more personal level, they were trying to tempt the Jewish men because the Jewish men were exposed to all these women, Persian women, who were very attractive, very inappropriately scantily dressed, and trying to tempt them into being with them and worshiping idols. Now, even if none of the men did that, still being in such an impure, unclean environment is something they should never have done. With all this going on, God decreed, okay, you people are sinning, I'm decreeing the wiping out of the entire Bnei Israel. Not right away. So what happened? Eliyahu Hanavi in the next world got very upset about that. He went to the Hashem wouldn't listen to him. He went to the Avod, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. They all prayed individually for the saving of the people, the carrying up the decree, evil decree. Their prayers didn't work. He went to the Imod, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. None of them worked. Even Rachel, whose earlier tears had led to the promise by Hashem that don't worry, your children will be returned to Eretz Israel. That's tied eventually, that was tied in with the 70 years I'm discussing. So that's the next thing we have. And he then went finally to Moshe Rabbeinu, Eliyahu. Moshe Rabbeinu interceded. Hashem said, okay, I'll cancel the decree, but the people are going to have to show that they deserve it. And that led to the whole Purim story and all the miracles that had to occur for them to be saved. And it led to the people having to do a 3-day fast, which I'll get back to in a minute. Actually, it was the first 3 days of Pesach. However, what is Esther playing all this? Now, who does Esther represent? Now, Esther was the name she took on when she was forced to marry Achashverosh. After the so-called beauty contest of all the beautiful women in the entire Persian Empire, 127 provinces worth. And she had a second name. She took Esther to hide her identity. Her other name was Hadassah. Now, according to the Quran and other sources, what does this Hadassah mean? If you drop off the hay from that, you'll get the word Hadass, or in Sephardic pronunciation, Hada'at. But the Hadass, or Da'at, means wisdom. Here it means wisdom, tree of wisdom, the tree of life, the Eitz Chaim. Now, the spiritual tree, this tree of life, the Eitz Chaim, it represents Torah, is the Torah. So Esther represents the Torah. She represents the mitzvahs. Also, in another source that's brought, not by the Gra, the Hadass is one of the 4 of the Arboretum species we take in Sukkot. Interestingly enough, it has a pleasant smell, but it does not have a pleasant taste. In fact, it's quite bitter. That personified Esther. She was basically a very sweet woman, very pure, very virtuous. However, when she, like the myrtle or like the Hadass, when bitten into, tastes quite bitter. In other words, not that she was bitter, but she Haman was going to find out what the other side, tougher side was when it was necessary. Now, so that's, and so the whole, according to Grove, the whole story of Megillus Esther is a battle between the Yitzhak represented by Achashverosh and the Torah and mitzvahs represented by her. Now, Hadass, one other meaning, it means tzedek, justice, the righteous, like the Sadiqim, the righteous, pure scholars, has that aspect also, and she also embodied that, represented that. Now, where does Haman fit into all this? Haman, now who was Haman? Haman was the descendant of Amalek. Now, the Amalekites were the people who attacked the Jews as they were coming out of Mitzrayim. They attacked the poor and the weak. Eventually, a battle led by Yeshua with Moshe praying, they were defeated, but not like the Canaanite tribes were not annihilated. They instead escaped to fight another day. At the time of King Shaul, Agag, an ancestor of Haman, was supposed to be destroyed. He wasn't destroyed. He lived long enough to father a child whose and descendant became Haman. Now, Haman, what does he represent on a deeper level? And what's the difference between the relationship on a deeper level between him and Achashverosh? It goes like this. The word Haman, I'll get back to in a second. There's one word in the Hebrew word that does not appear anywhere in Tanakh. That's the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. Nowhere does he appear. Does the word suffix appear? Why? Because everything of God is definite, it's known, it's established, it's pure. And so what's going on here? We go, however, the word suffix, which has the gematria of 240, has the same gematria as Amalek. So Amalek represents the uncertainty factor, the doubt. In fact, it cast the mind and the doubt into the nation's mind. See, we could defeat the Jews, we just didn't use the right tactics. And it even cast certain doubts in the Jews' mind. Now, that is suffix. Now, according to Rabbi Moshe Shapiro, this concept is also brought by the Vilna Gaon earlier, that everything that happens in Maisa, and the 5 books of Moses, the Chumash, also happened in Maisa Bereshit. Now, where do we see Amalek and Safek? It's the 8th of Das, Tov, and Ra, the tree of good and evil. Now, the tree of good and evil, cast out. That's where Safek comes in. The 8th of Ra led to them eating from that tree. That led to the form of a snake. That led to people eating, having doubt. All of us, there's doubt. In other words, if everybody knew that if somebody committed an avera or a sin, a lightning bolt would hit him, there'd be no free will. Shem wasn't allowed to have free will. So the Safek comes up with all kinds of, beginning people to see all kinds of things, why it's okay to do what they're not supposed to do. And so Haman represents that doubt factor, which is how the Yitzhak works. If Achashverosh is the Yetzer Hara, he's his partner, he represents a fake doubt. Now, so there we see the connection between Achashverosh and Haman, and how Esther is ultimately going to be a cure for that. Now, that leaves 2 questions I had remaining there. One, what does this have to do with Matan Torah? Or what does Matan Torah have to do with this? And the answer to that is follows: is the famous Midrash discussing the Matan Torah, where just before the Torah is going to be given, Hashem raises Har Sinai over the people and tells them, if you accept the Torah, all well and good. If you don't accept the Torah, well, that's it. Now, this is a little hard to understand this Midrash, because just before this, the people said, Nasav Nishma, we'll do and we'll hear. Unlike all the nations in the world who want to know what was in it, and as soon as they heard what was in it, one mitzvah even they couldn't think they could do, they refused. Now, so if they just said we'll do it, only after that we'll learn total trust in Hashem, why did he have to make that threat? According to one explanation about it, wasn't for the time of Matan Torah. There was complete belief in Hashem. What it was talking about was the events that were going to take place in the time of the story of Mordechai and Esther in Megillah Esther. And the question with that is, the Torah has two parts. The written Torah, Hashem knew they were going to accept it. The oral Torah, which is personified by the descendants of Moshe, I don't mean physical descendants, but all spiritual descendants of Moshe throughout the generations, spiritual leaders, had to be followed too. Yes, they follow Moshe most of the time. And when it came to the party and not glorifying Akashrevosh, they refused to listen. And therefore, these events occurred. Now you see a total turnaround, because Esther said, proclaimed that 3-day fast before she went to Akashverosh to beg for the people, this right to defend themselves, and before when Adar was going to come up. And there was going to be ultimate defeat. Why did Haman think it was a good thing to do? Because he did everything's chance, there's no order to the universe. And he came up Adar, and he was thrilled because he knew that was a death. Moshe Rabbeinu died. What he did not know and was concealed from him was also the day Moshe Rabbeinu was born. So it was a very good month, B'nai Yisrael. And Shem was saying, in the future, you don't follow the rabbinical authorities, I'm holding that Har Sinai over you. Not literally Har Sinai, but in this case, the threat of the total eradication after going to that feast. And they now followed Das Torah, as explained by Mordecai, under the guidance, in this case, of Esther. And once they had the victory, they proclaimed great happiness and rejoicing in all the events, this salvation, the fact that they in fact listened to Mordecai and Esther. And this is why it becomes a day of celebration, because they finally accepted it, because it says Yom Kippur, it's translated. It can be a day like Purim. It can be explained, what does that mean? We accept Hashem out of fear. On Yom Kippur, there might be some element of love and happiness, but basically out of fears. And Purim, we do it out of a higher level of love of Hashem, closeness to Hashem, we follow him. And that explains, that's an explanation of that. Now the question is, why do we have to drink where we don't know the difference between Mordechai Tzedek and Manarasha? It's teaching us, besides the fact we're rejoicing at the time of Purim in the miracle salvation of Hashem, there's an even deeper point here. if one looks at it, what does it mean? You won't know the difference, because actually both good and evil are part of Hashem's design for the world, so that we could have free will, so that we could get greater reward. Righteous could get greater reward. So that is true also. And looking at that reward, we have to realize, however, that darkness, evil, the Yetzer Hara, is part of Hashem's divine plan. And even though Yetzer Hara seems to get the upper hand, it never does, at least on an ongoing basis. And that is why we are supposed to get to a spiritual level where we can recognize that. We see in one of the next verses in the Chumash, it says, V'yomer Elokim v'hi or, and he said there, let there be light, and there was light. Then it goes on to say that he's going to separate between and the light and darkness. It's called the light day and the Koshik darkness. Now, we're not talking about a physical darkness, because it says Or and Koshik were mixed together and then he separates them. Now, you can't take a mixture of darkness, take it out of a dark area, mix it with light and get some kind of mixture. We're talking about spiritual darkness. We're talking about the Yetzer Hara. We're talking about impurity. And realizing that it is part. So we say or keto, why don't we say kosher keto? And it's explained that no matter how much the humans would try, we can't get into the idea that part of the Hashem's plan is darkness. It says, so that we can get a better reward. In fact, it says in Gemara that when did Hashem realize, or know, he always knew, when was he realize that Haman was plotting it? Was 2,000 years before creation, at the time the Torah was created. Black fire and white fire. Now, interesting question. Who's that a lesson for? Obviously not Hashem. It's a lesson for us that was part of the divine plan from the beginning. Now, so therefore, on Purim, by celebrating Purim, we're helping to bring light. Now, that also ties finally into this week's Parsha, where it's talking about the Korbanot that are brought. It's talking about the Mishkan. We just finished a whole number of Parshas dealing with the Mishkan and Sefer Shmos. And it's brought down that light, that the Or, that there was darkness, and this is brought down by Rav Moshe Shapiro, that, or he at least explains this, there was darkness, well, there was darkness in the world, and the Mishkan came to light it. In Hashem's presence, the Mishkan came to light up the world. Now, we're not talking about physical darkness, we're talking about spiritual darkness there too. And therefore, as Rav Moshe Shapiro explained years ago, this is before the war, obviously, he explained that today, by doing Torah and mitzvahs and being Sameach, the month of Purim, we can truly light up the whole world, help banish darkness and evil. And this is something that we should really keep in mind even more so this year, that if we can truly find that simcha, even with all the challenges of the war and events, the anti-Semitism around the world, if we can do that, we'll truly make Adar a month of light, and may through that light, may Hashem bring our salvation from both the war and our ultimate salvation. Purim Sameach.